So I think that's our prompt. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our lovely city of joy. If everybody's wondering why Chef Shaun's dressed in a jacket, it's because I went to the race course today and they have some funny dress code, which is rare for me to be seen outside of a black t-shirt. We have a lovely panel today, I think. Some quite interesting, beautiful ladies on my panel today. And from what I've just understood, spending 15 minutes with them, all of them have a lot to say. But we do live in the land of Kali, so that's also okay, I guess, isn't it? So building a culture of food. I think that's kind of like such a massive topic that when I started to think about it today. And I said I don't really want to ramble on too much myself. So I thought I want it to be as free-flowing as possible. We'll have quick 10 minutes at the end. We have a timer that's counting down already. So we've got 50 minutes on the clock. We're going to give you 10 minutes at the end. If you'd like to have some questions answered. We have Julia Roberts with us, who has just been introduced. I've known Julia for, I think, 4 years now. Sonal, who first time I've met before, but I've been hearing a lot about Sonal, interestingly. And I think we must share at least 1 million friends in common. Maria Goretti. So two people on the panel, if you type in their names on the internet. For Julia, you'll get a very different Julia Roberts than the one sat in front of you. And for Maria Goretti, you'd think she's a saint. Well, she probably is quite saintly. I'm not kind of like disputing that. And last but not least, Shalini Modi, who's, I guess, quite an interesting character on the panel. Another beautiful lady that's going to have a lot to say about very different things, I'm hoping, and may try to get her to put some spanner in the works as we go along. So I think I want to start off by asking you all the same question, really. And I guess, like I say, I think food is such an imperative thing to all of our lives and all of our lifestyles, and becoming more and more and more so. Everybody's looking at food as being this. So I don't want to take over, but just talking about from a chef's point of view, I remember breakfast at one point in time was the most simple meal of the day. You quickly made some breakfast, everybody was happy. But nowadays, everybody has some special diet that they want to have for breakfast. And it's become the most difficult meal of the day to appease anybody with. I don't do carbs, I don't do this, I only eat my avocados and eggs for breakfast. It's become like such a interesting thing. So I want to open this up to all of you with, do we not already have a food culture in India already? Who would like to begin? Maria's nodding her head, and we can start with you.
So I think for all of us, we all gather around tables and still eat. And that is the very start of food culture right there in our homes. I think everything that we do in India is centered around food. Every celebration, every non-celebration, everything. And I think that is the start of food culture. Today, of course, I feel there's a lot of a mix-up with a lot of things that we do. But I feel that our country and all of us, there is something that we're doing where we're going back to our roots. When we're trying to go back to what our great-grandparents did during a celebration or at home or during summer or during winter or during the rains. And I feel that kind of food culture, of course it gets honed because of so much of, so much coming in from various factors. But I think that the simplicity of that food culture will always stay.
I also agree with you there. And I think, obviously, as the years are going on, and maybe it's obviously for an educated group of people, but we're all starting to think more and more of our diets. I think more and more about what we eat, where it's come from, where it's been, where it's going. So I'm going to pose the same question to all of you. I'm going to come back to Julie at the end because she can talk about the UK aspect of that, which is also thriving. So, Sonal.
I feel like when you say food culture, I think in India it becomes plural, because with 29 states and every single state and within that the micro cuisines just make Indian food so much more interesting when it comes to understanding culture. It's extremely challenging to pigeonhole, to put everything in one bucket and say this is Indian food culture, because truly that doesn't exist. There is so much of borrowed food, which we'll come to at some point of time in this conversation. But when you say Indian food culture, I don't know how to, put it in like a few lines, because it varies from the Kashmir to the Kanyakumari.
But I've been here for so long, and obviously, I mean, I've travelled around the country, and there really is a serious culture of food in this country, which has always been here, I think. And I'm not talking about in individual states. I'm just talking about everybody's in on it. Yeah. It's kind of like in my state, in my small town, and everybody's...
And the funny thing is, Shaun, no matter which part of the country you go in, everybody will be like, oh, in Calcutta, we are big foodies. Oh, in Gujarat, we are big foodies. Oh, Parsis are big foodies. Everybody thinks that they are big foodies, but the truth is this entire country is foodie.
So at least India has a head start then on most countries in the world, doesn't it?
It's also it's one of the oldest civilizations in the world. So we started eating before everybody else existed.
So the same questions to Shalini.
So I feel, like Maria said about going back to the roots. And I feel similarly. I feel a lot of the traditions that we've gone back to, it's somewhere pointing back to the roots, say intermittent fasting or, abstaining for food for long hours. Because we went through this period when doctors said, oh, we should eat every 2 hourly. And otherwise you'll have this gastric issue and all of that. But now we are back to this. And there was while reading the Ramayana, I'd come across...
That's the key, isn't it? And again, I think it's something... I mean, I grew up in a working class 1970s England, having margarine on bread, having fried foods, because my mother hadn't learned to cook from her mother. And that was also a bit of a problem. And that's, to a certain extent, why I wanted to come to Julia last. So obviously, us British have taken a lot of flack. I've taken a lot of flack over the years as a chef in India for having some of the crappiest food in the world. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, there's lots of crap out there, but there's also lots of crap happening in India, sadly, at the moment as well. But we'll also come back to that later. So Julia, help us fly the flag for the UK somehow.
Firstly, thanks so much for inviting me to be here in the most amazing, welcoming city. It's a real pleasure to be here and on this panel. Yeah, so the UK, as Shaun said, sometimes has a really mixed sort of reputation on food. But if any of you have been recently, you will know actually how delicious it is. We have, for example, in London, which is just an epicenter of so many mixes of cultures, we have every cuisine you could possibly want. And that has infiltrated through now, I'd say, to so many different cities and so many different towns. Really wistful for choice. And then we've also got a really big culture of celebrity chefs as well, with MasterChef and the Great British Bake Off, which I know that format is happening all around the world. That's really influencing the picture and making and inspiring people to cook in their own homes when they have time. So I'd say, actually, we've got a really eclectic, wonderful food scene in the UK, and it's a joy to be part of that, really.
Okay, so on the back of that, I think let's just talk about your little ginger and spice fest. So you're in the middle of the UK in a small town, small market town, Market Drayton. Very few people have heard of it realistically. But the festival that you run is like many other festivals that are happening in the UK, and for all the right reasons, perhaps. And to a certain extent, maybe this building a future of food is part of that that I want you to discuss.
Yeah, exactly. There is a huge festival scene in the UK and a massive food festival scene as well. I run a small food festival called Ginger and Spice. Here we go. In Market Drayton, which is a rural community, is about 12,000 people. And it's actually known as the home of gingerbread, but nobody was talking about it. So we decided to get together and start promoting the gingerbread and the local artisan makers and food. And it's coming into its 8th year, and it's a real success. One of the things we're trying to do is to work with local chefs and local producers to showcase what they're doing and show real, slow, wholesome cooking that can be done at home. So on the negative side of the food scene, we're really dominated in the United Kingdom by supermarkets, and everyone has, as I imagine you do here, extremely busy lives with both parents and families working, with probably little time for cooking when they get back. And as a result, there's lots of people eating probably quite unhealthy foods, ultra-processed foods from the supermarkets. So what we're doing in our festival is showcasing what they can buy locally, how they can cook it, and actually how accessible seasonal and local ingredients are. I think, Shaun, you touched on people are not really learning cookery from their parents anymore like they used to. And so we're trying to touch on that and encourage people to sort of learn some skills and buy local food.
Excellent. So I think that's a good start, really. I think we're on the right track, I think, amongst ourselves. So I think let's start talking about you ladies and your books now, I think. So Maria, who I've met very briefly in the past, back in the VJ year, I mean, you've had quite a colourful career, really, haven't you? Done some cooking on TV. So as a little bit of an opener, just tell us a little bit about your book, I think.
So this book of mine basically came about because I actually was dabbling with writing a blog years before I even actually went formally to school, to chef school. And I think while the process for me while writing the blog was a very question and answer, how do I make this? This is not working out, can somebody help me? By the time I finished with chef school and by the time I continued with my blog, I realized that I had quite a number of answers. And when I decided to write this book, I thought I should put down techniques that I know, but make it really simple so that anyone can do it. And I think when you're inclusive, it's a nicer way to be. So the recipes in this book, some of them are what I learned from my mum, some of them are what I got from my aunts, some of them are from my friends, some from chefs that I have met, worked with, and some from my own experiments. Basically, when I did this book, I did not want to have any styling to the food. So there was no food styling done to it. It was actually from the pan onto the plate and was photographed. Because I realized that when I was learning how to cook, I would pick up a book and it would look so gorgeous and I would say, oh my God, I'm going to be making this. And it would not end up looking like that, and it would be really, I would be like, oh my God, what a waste, you know.
Did it taste like you imagined it to taste, or it didn't even taste like that?
No, some of the recipes didn't. So when I did this book, I think I did about 4 trials on my own. And then what I did last year in 2023 is, I took my book and I did something on Insta called Cook the Book, whereby I cooked this entire book. So if you have this book and you are fumbling with, reading it and saying, oh, she said this, she said that, and I'm not understanding it, all you have to do is go to my Insta page and the recipe is there. So I thought I should make it as simple, as inclusive, as welcoming as possible.
So I think that's definitely a thing so a lot of friends around the world, they'll say, oh, Indian food's way too complicated, there's too many ingredients, and in many ways, if you read a recipe, you could actually take out 50% of those ingredients and cook the same dish realistically, and take out a few of the processes. But I'm not going to get into that political argument with these ladies in front of me, and you guys also. So Sonal's written a couple of books. How many books? 5 books, you said you've written. So I have 2. And it's only today that I realised that they were written by you, even though I've been following you a little bit and know that she's really quite outspoken. And her books are also kind of like talking about India in a modern kind of like context a little bit. So I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit about your books.
So most of my books are dedicated to the whole subject of the diversity in Indian food, because what I grew up thinking Indian food was actually just Gujarati food that I ate. I thought this is it, but you know, my mother made tacos and enchiladas and all of that when I was in school, and I was like, and I always thought that Mexican food was a part of Gujarati food repertoire, because she used to cook out of talla dalal recipes, and talla dalal was really ahead of her time to have those recipes in those cookbooks. So that was my journey, where I never understood what Indian food meant, because I was eating Mexican food, but that was not Indian food, although the ingredients were similar. Exactly. And the journey began to understand what Indian food was, and when I got this opportunity to write Tiffin, my second book, which was on 500 Indian recipes from different states of India, that's when my mind was blown, because when I was researching, I realized that there were not just cuisines, but also hyper cuisines and micro cuisines within that. And that's how this whole journey began. And post that, the idea has always been to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. My latest book is called India Local, which is somewhere at the in that shelf there. And thank you, ladies.
That's a lot of promotion.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very heavy book.
Okay.
So when I wrote this book, my pitch note to my editor was really simple. I was in Agra. I was shooting for a platform called India Food Network, and we were doing street foods of Agra. So everybody told me, go to this place called the Chaat Gully. And it's literally called the Chaat Gully, so I will imagine that you get chaat there, right? And I went there, and there was 2 shops with chaat, and the entire lane had like penne pasta, Hakka noodles, Frankie, momos in Agra, in Lucknow. All these regions, momos have like basically mushroomed everywhere, right? Out of nowhere. You get momos in like Chennai. So my pitch note to my editor was this photograph of penne pasta and Hakka noodles at a street vendor, and I said, you know, I have to write about the dying down of Indian street food, because if I don't, then everybody's just going to grow up thinking this is Indian street food. Like Hakka noodles could be Indian street food in Calcutta, but definitely not in Agra. So,
but it has become, I guess.
It has. So this whole homogenization of Indian food on the street is what was a big reason why I wrote this book called India Local, which has Indian charts and street foods.
So I think I'm forever saying this to people. So obviously I've been a staunch non-vegetarian all my life, and obviously love cooking everything, and actually more and more enjoy cooking vegetarian food more. But I think if you look at the Gujarati community and the Marwari community, they've forever been on the move, really, with their cuisines and culture, really. As long as it's vegetarian, it's forever changing and moving and moving. Well, I think a lot of, let's say, non-vegetarian based foods or traditions in India are stagnant. They're not moving on, because it's kind of like, I think, like Bengal, for instance. I'm forever saying that I think probably some of the best vegetarian country in the world comes from Bengal, and the Bengalis won't tell anybody about it because they'd rather talk about their kosher mangsho. But we have the tastiest vegetarian food in the country. I believe that wholeheartedly.
I just want to add there that for me, Bengali food always meant like kosher mangsho, and I didn't understand anything beyond that until I ate this meal. And my friend is sitting right there, and she's the one actually who introduced me to it. And you know, she just told me that the reason Bengali food, in terms of vegetarian food, tastes so delicious, like Mediterranean food, they do a lot of justice to the vegetables. And that's why vegetarian food is not cooked with gravies and, you know, sauces and all of that, but it's just there with like a little bit of spices.
But very flavoursome, very tasty. But anyway, I can talk about Bengali food all day. So Shalini, so again, written a number of books with a very different direction, which I'd love you to talk about. And then I think we'll open up the discussion a little bit more towards this
Food.
building a culture of food.
Right.
But please just tell us a little bit about your side of this, because you can take a completely different angle than I guess any of us can.
Absolutely. So my books are based on mythology, and you'll wonder what I'm doing on this panel. So I was meant to bring the traditional side of food as mentioned in our Puranas or Ayurvedic texts. And my books, so I grew up hearing stories from these different epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata and Puranas, and that's what got my interest. And I realized that our generation still took faith as it came, but the younger generation needed to question. So when they would come with questions, I needed to read more, and then I read more, and then I felt the need to write. So that's how my journey as a writer started, and I think that's it. So
Excellent. So okay, so coming back to the main topic, building a culture of food. I think we've already like poked and prodded around with that already. I think we have a culture of food which is, I think we all need to try and protect and keep the supermarkets out for as long as we can, keep fast food chains out for as long as we can. I don't work for any of these companies, but I mean, look how quickly Starbucks has grown in India in the last 10 years or something since they started here. You only need to make a few small changes, and within no time at all, you're speaking a completely different language and you're eating processed food, and it really just creeps up on you. Really. So I think let's talk about. So there's always this. So again, wherever you go in India, people will happily murder you by you saying that the cuisine and their culture maybe it never belonged to them in the first place. Maybe it was something that was begged or stolen or borrowed. And that obviously food culture is changing every day, has been throughout history. Whenever new ingredients have come into any country in the world or any place in India, then people will have cooked with them, they'll have made new dishes when new spices are available. So food is forever moving. So then we come to this thing of, and again, people are staunchly kind of like driven by tradition, which also irritates me a little bit, because I'll say, if I spoke to, give me 5 more years, if I speak to a 20-year-old child, they'll literally fight me to say that Maggie's been part of our food culture for generations, and they'll literally they'll fight you probably for that, and I believe that's probably true. So traditions versus a new approach, or so how do we keep traditions? And I think there's plenty of keepers of traditions. I don't think that's ever going to go away. And I live in Bengal, and I know there's many more keepers of traditions here than there probably are in most states. Maybe I'm wrong, but so the question there moving forwards is, how can we keep things realistic? How can we keep things traditional? Is it through small farming? Is it through city farming? Is it through hydroponics, aquaponics? In the modern day context, where the world is growing at such a rapid pace, I work in cities like Bangalore and Hyderabad, even Bombay, where nobody has a cook anymore. People rarely cook a meal. They've never cooked a meal. I know lots of people have never cooked a meal in their lives, really. They go out every day after work. So how do we make that a bit more real, really, a bit more realistic? I think that's the only way to really build a long-lasting food culture, realistically. So Shalini's nodding her head, so I'm going to throw it out to you.
So recently I just got asked this question about, when I mentioned how earlier the whole food eating habit was dependent on the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun. And today also we see people wanting to have their dinner early. And this whole thing connected with the digestive system being connected to the sun. So in some way, the sun's energy, fires up our digestion. But for the office goers, like you said, how do you strike a balance? So for office goers, it can be difficult, especially in winter season, to eat before sunset. But at least you can make a difference by eating an early dinner. So usually when you come back from office, the tradition is that you'll have a snack and then later have dinner, because dinner is meant to be eaten at 8 or 9 or whatever. So you can change that. And even if you don't eat before sunset, you can eat earlier. So these small things that you can bring about an amalgamation of tradition with modern doability, I would say.
Obviously, that makes sense for a lot of people today. I think it's kind of like what's doable and what's not. But how can we keep? So I'm incredibly lucky. I live in Lake Gardens, as many of you know, and I post a lot about my local market, which is literally next to my house, and it's my lifeline. I love my local market. It's the most beautiful time to be out in the market, anywhere you are in India today. And you'll get the most beautiful produce, so many vibrant colours, particularly in the winter. And interestingly, it's called Lake Garden Supermarket. And I'm forever saying, no, it's not a supermarket. It's a wet market, it's a lovely market, but it, unfortunately, it's known as, and it's called Lake Garden Supermarket. But it's on a massive swathe of land. It's on a huge piece of property. And obviously, all the shopkeepers keep saying, barely anybody comes here anymore. Everybody's buying from Swiggy, let's say, or Blinkit. Blinkit has just become the easiest thing to buy from. They're buying all their groceries from an app these days. Less and less people come to the market. So I'm wondering, how do we keep hold of that market? So I'm forever taking all my guests that everybody that comes to Calcutta, I want to promote that market. I want to promote markets in India. But how do we keep doing that? So, Sonal, obviously, I think the books that you've written are quite an interesting way to kind of look at this transition between tradition and what's coming next. And I'm sure as you continue to write, obviously you're saying it's something that's gotten into your blood now, and I can't stop. But I guess you will start writing more. I mean, there's still plenty more for you to write about in India, but as time goes on, you will start writing recipes that are much more modern, perhaps, and maybe made for a modern-day India.
Actually, I'm hoping that there'll be so much tradition to cover that I won't have the time to talk about modernity. That's the hope. Not because I'm a traditionalist, but that's what I see where food is going now. There has never been a time in my life, at least, where I see Indian chefs get recognized more than European chefs in this country. The top 5 chefs of this country are cooking Indian food. They're cooking a modern version of Indian food, but their roots are Indian. They're using indigenous ingredients. So there's definitely, from the side where people are, in the place that people are, to influence minds, to influence younger culinary college students, that direction is right.
But so this is a bit of an awkward one, really. So it's amazing to see how far the Indian chefs come in the last 10 years, really. And I can say that it's been 10 years, and there's been enormous change. It's amazing to see. But I still think that if I speak to a lot of friends about what's happening in Bombay and Goa with these kind of really modern approach to Indian food, a lot of people that I know would say, "Oh, bloody rubbish!" Kind of why are they doing all of that? What's the point? Because again, most people are still stuck in their ways. They're very traditional in their mindset. It's kind of why do we need to do all of that?
See, there are certain restaurants which are doing the modern take on it. But even if you go eat an Indian accent today, probably you will get, say, 5 modern appetizers followed by a basic dal makhani and naan. Whether I go to a Bukhara, I will still eat my butter chicken and naan. If I go to a Bombay canteen, I will eat a bowl of, say, dal dokli. Probably the presentation is different, but I'm still eating dal dokli. This sort of, I want to call my food exotic before somebody else does it for me. What happened with turmeric is what needs to happen with every Indian superfood. I do not need the West to tell me that I am sitting on a treasure trove of Indian ingredients, and I think Indian superfood, and I think this has begun. This has just begun with the whole scenario of Indian food influencers taking ownership and claiming their ingredients, whether it's in the West or whether it's in India. There is a movement, and I'm positive that this is going to, snowball.
And it's great to see that India's actually caught up with the world as far as that's concerned. I mean, like Latin America's doing exactly the same thing with its food. If you go to the Middle East, they're doing the same. And I think it's fantastic, really. And that really, to a certain extent, is the future of food, really. You need to keep moving forward with it. Food has always moved forward. It's never gone backwards ever in its life.
I have to tell you, so I am East Indian and I come from the city of Mumbai, the 7 little islands that erstwhile Bombay. And we have something called bottle masala. And bottle masala is like the stamp of every East Indian kitchen. Today, when I cook with it, I probably don't make curries like my grandmother used to do. But I still do it with a baked chicken. I still sometimes put it into my pastas to flavor them. So what I feel is that, coming back to your question of how do you kind of go ahead, but still, keep your, I think, roots intact, or keep your heritage intact. I think that's the little way that I feel that when I see my mom cook, when I see the rest of my family cook, and when I see what I do, but I think that comes with awareness. I think that comes with the fact that, yes, I'm able to use my ingredients in a certain way. I'm able to twist and turn them and still keep the essence of it. So I think that's what, like Sonal said, that's what most chefs are doing. But at the end of the day, yes, sometimes you even go to Bombay canteen and have like a lovely misal pav, because that's what's so amazing, and that's what's so amazing, and that's what warms your heart.
So again, coming back to that, so all of these young chefs that are like making a big noise around India and suddenly around the world are really, and like I say, I'm forever having this conversation with people, and most people are dismissing it, saying, oh, it's just a fad. But this is the way Indian food is moving forward now, really. It's using local traditions, local ingredients, local cooking styles, but also with maybe some Western cooking styles in there. So it's become a much more modern kind of like, just a modern approach to really very traditional, simple Indian cooking to a certain extent. And these are the people that are winning all the awards in India today. These are the people that really are moving around the world and making lots of noise. Me and Manish Malhotra have a very old history together. And it's true, if you go to Indian Accent, which is constantly rated as the best restaurant in the country, there's nothing confusing about any of the food that Manish has ever cooked, I don't think. It's always been very, very pure. And it's, okay, it might be a tasting menu of 21 courses, but you get delicious, very refined Indian food in every plate and every mouthful that you ever eat. And that's become the trend, really. So it's nothing strange about eating 21 courses and it costing you lots of money. And again, a lot of people think, like, what's the point of all of that when I can just have a big plate of biryani with my 2 pieces of mutton, my 2 aloo, and a boiled egg in there, and I'm happy.
Like I said, Shaun, our cuisine is really old, like 4,000 years old. I'm bound to get bored with it. I have to do something after 4,000 years.
So I think I've been trying to propagate that forever, really. I think cuisines have to move on. They have to constantly keep changing. I just realized that we're running out of time. We've actually only got 6 minutes of talking left, see? And we were saying 40 minutes, such a long time. Yes, we've not. But we did ask Julia 2 questions at the beginning. So I want to open this up to all of you now, really. I want you to have some fun with this. So Julia, you tell us what the future is then. In your little town, in the middle of the UK, what's the future?
What we've been doing at the festival actually is working with local chefs and sort of local and well-known nationally and doing a schools program. So taking the chefs into the local schools and working with the children and trying to inspire them. We also put on free cookery activities on the day in our market so children can come along and get their hands involved, touch real food, make it, see how it's made. Because actually there's a real disconnect, I think. If families are just buying products from the supermarket and putting it in an oven and not really making it, children are going to grow up not understanding anything about food, what it's made from, and how to make it. So it's a small thing, but we do engage with the schools program, and we think that's really key and really important. It starts with the kids. It's got to start there. You know, some of them have never even seen an animal and don't associate chicken with being a hen and things like that. So taking them out to farms, bringing the farmers in, and working with the chefs to work with the schools is really important.
So I even think today that, so I say to many of my friends, why don't you come to my house one morning and come to my local market? And these are people that have grown up here. They've just not been to a local market, probably never in their life, or definitely not in the last 30 years that they've been an adult, which is an incredible shame, really. I mean, most of my friends, they'll say, oh, you go to a local market. And it's like, yes, of course I do. And I've never been to one, really, which is a really sad thing, I think. And like I said, if we don't protect these things, in another 10 years, they'll all be gone, because that real estate has enormous amounts of value. Anybody else wants to have a go at this one? I think we're going to have to sign off shortly.
I must tell you very quickly that I have been going to Goa a lot. Goa has a huge, huge influx of every kind of new restaurant. I think if you walk 100 meters, you come across a new restaurant. But what I still feel is that they have these huge, no, I would not call them organic, but I would say huge vegetable markets, huge produce markets that people still frequent. They still have something called the Friday Bazaar, and it is jam-packed, and it's fantastic. It's an experience to even go there. And the thing is that all of us have our little duty towards the next generation, our children. I think if we take them once in a month into a real place like that, you know, they do understand that you don't have to go and have a burger at a fast food place, because the food that comes out of local markets are really, really tasty.
I agree with you there. Like, we've gone with our parents to local markets, and you kind of get the feel of the vegetables and the fruits, and it has its own fun, but that stopped. So I think that needs to be encouraged. Also, I feel that, you know, like small things, not just about cooking, like you mentioned about learning, you know, how to cook from your mom and bringing certain nuances of that into your cooking. So something simple as, you know, being told that, oh, this food is meant for summers because it is cooling, and this food is meant for winters because it's heat generating. You know, even those things like having water dipped almonds in summer, and having plenty of dry fruits in winter, you know, pockets filled with dry fruits. So, you know, having that disparity also, I think all of these smaller things, when you talk to the kids about, they learn a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of commonsensical things that have been forgotten in food. And I'm also a believer that, I mean, you have to start with the schools, actually. There needs to be part of the syllabus from being very young that these things happen, actually. Sonal.
Yeah, food definitely will be more interesting than trigonometry. I'd like that.
As much food as you can, and maybe sport as well. If we're talking about a culture of food, there should be a lot more sport in schools, but that's a different topic. Julia.
Well, just quickly, it's not actually on the educational syllabus in the United Kingdom anymore. The government have wiped it out. So I think it's really key to be bringing that back and into education. That's absolutely right. And it's a travesty that that's not seen as important. It's the essence of what we do every day. It's how we keep our health, is eating healthily.
So,
and yeah.
So I went to secondary school in the 80s, early 80s. And I went to an all-boys school, but even then we had no home economics class. We had no home economics class. It was one of my favorite classes in school. We got to do baking, and this is in an all-boys school. So they've eradicated that now. That's gone, is it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was studying, it was there, I did it. In fact, it was the only thing I ever came top in. So, but now home ec and cookery is just not in schools. Certainly not the publics, the private system, I don't know as well, but some private. But in the state system, which is the majority of people where they're educated, there isn't cookery.
Okay, so quick final roundup, really. Quick 30 seconds from each of you, and then we'll throw it open to the crowd. So what is the way forward for building a culture of food in India as we stand today? Anybody can start.
I didn't get the whole...
No, so going back to where we started, building a culture of food, I think we've brushed on many different aspects there of how we can take food forward and how it's moving forward, but just final 30 seconds from each of you.
So I think it's more about being mindful of what you eat is what I think, you recognize the ingredients and your body type and what agrees with it, because as you go on, your body type also keeps changing. So it's about recognizing that and eating so that you get the maximum benefit from the food that you eat.
Sonal.
I think for me, the future of Indian food lies in exploration. I think encouraging exploration and seeing what sticks.
Maria.
I think for me, the future of our Indian food is around our dining tables, and I cannot reiterate that more vehemently. I think what we put on the table, when we ask our children to come to the table, and sometimes I have teens, so I have to tell them things like, I know you've eaten out, but just sit around the table and just have a tablespoon of the dal, rice, and the vegetable that has been cooked in the house. And I think that's my little way.
I think you should hold on to that as long as you can. I think in the West that went in the early 2000s. Nobody sits at a dining table together in the West. Haven't done for years and years and years. Madam.
Yeah, I mean, people do it less and less. And I totally agree with what everyone else has said. I think, going to the grassroots, like going to your farmers markets, engaging with growers, joining cooperatives locally. People are joining cooperatives in the UK to grow veg and feed their communities. I'm all for that, and I'm hoping to join one myself. That's a really way forward. And as I said earlier, education, teaching youngsters and everyone, what they're eating and what's good for them.
So I think flying a flag within your own community, buying as local as you can, whenever you can, buying what's in season. I don't think the nuances of that have ever changed, really. I think that was how people always lived once. I see a lot of people in Calcutta still doing that today. If I go to my local market, there's still lots of people there, so it's not as though it's gone away yet. But I also grew up in a small market town in the UK, and that market became something else many, many, many years ago. So we only have a few minutes left, and these guys are really dodgy for time today. So any questions from the audience, if somebody has a mic out there? So anybody on the panel? Yeah. You can shout if you want.
Yeah, just good evening, respected panel members and good evening friends. আপনাদের সবাইকে happy আমি একজন writer and voiceover artist. I'm a writer and a voiceover artist. My name is Imran. So I would just like to share for 4 lines, and that is गमे फुरकत में तुझे सब ने याद किया, बहार आई तो तू कहाँ याद रहा, जिंदगी सबों की ऐसी बना दे मालिक कि सदा लब पे हो शुक्रिया शुक्रिया तेरा शुक्रिया. So it's all about, in bad days we remembered you, in good days we didn't. And Malik, Lord, I pray to you that make everyone's life shukriya a beautiful life. So food is very much important. Please take care of your health and shukriya kijiye for the health which God has given you. Take care of it and you will have a beautiful life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next, quickly.
Hello.
Shaun, the place that you live in, Leg Gardens, right? That
If you can speak up a little bit.
This is Aditya, I'm a big time foodie. So the place that you live in, Leg Gardens, there's a lot of high-end restaurants everywhere, including South City Mall. Then you have the Southern Avenue and all. So if you look at Delhi, there's a market called INA market. So their whole business model is actually not supplying to the local consumers. They are actually selling very high-end produce, like they're importing the stuff from abroad and selling to 5-star hotels and like big shot restaurants. So maybe if your seller is at your local market, if you can actually introduce this concept, there's a lot of high-end restaurants there.
No, so anyway, so I think it's
because this kind of things are not available in the grocery apps.
No, but I think this is going off a little bit. But I think if we go to Newmarket, I can pretty much get anything from anywhere in the world within 24 hours with a few people that I know there and a few other suppliers. So I don't necessarily think that's a way to save those markets. We have to consciously want to save them ourselves, I think. Right. Anybody else? Yes, madam. Sir, yes.
Should I? Yes, please. Hello. Hello, Shaun. I'm seeing you after 1 year. That's great. If you're here, fine. So I have a question regarding the food culture, okay? Which I've seen that UK, we have a fantastic Indian curries and Indian foods. We are celebrating, entire country is celebrating for Indian foods, okay? But question is this, is there any fusion, is there any influence of Indian food in the mainstream British food? And when two countries have a different culture, different consciousness altogether, how it is working? Okay, thank you.
So I didn't really want this to be about me, but just quickly, if you go to the UK today, everything's about fusion, everything's about cool, tasty, flavoursome food from anywhere in the world. There's not really, a lot of it's not traditional. If you go to a lot of restaurants, they're playing on tapas, small plates. Yeah. They're just really tasty, flavoursome food. They're not given any tagline. They're not being called Oriental or Asian or Indian. It's just some really good, tasty food. And really, I guess that's, for me, always been the future of food, really. Yeah. Another one, quick one. So somebody else in the panel, please, not to me. People in this city are used to me talking way too much.
Hello, good evening. I have a question for Maria. I've been watching your cookery show for a while, and I am a big fan of your this food called shorba that you had. You did that in your cookery show, so that was very nice. And it was made out of very simple ingredients that we would get in our kitchen. So I have a question that when you write a book, so do you have such dishes which are kind of from the kitchen, like basic ingredients that we get and not going on to the exotic side of the plate? Thank you.
Yeah. So when I did this book, I only used ingredients that are available in any local market. So there is nothing in this book that you have to really struggle with. So when I came back from chef school, the first thing I had to do was relearn, redo everything I did, because meats, vegetables, ingredients that you get abroad are probably not the same as you get here. And so this book is actually very, very simple to follow, because everything that you need is available in your local banya.
Okay, I have a question for you, Maria. The first time I saw you was on television way back in many ages ago, 1999, 2000.
Yes.
When you were MTV BJ.
I was going to say, be careful, she's still a beautiful young woman.
She looks young. In fact, she looks 25, sweet 16. The point is, the question I want to ask you, around which year you got interested into cooking and everything related to it?
So I basically started cooking because I had to feed my kids. I didn't know how to feed my kids. I used to keep calling my mum and telling her, how do I make this? How do you make this? How do you make this? Somewhere along the line, I realized that I absolutely loved the whole process of cooking. And then I went off to chef school. I went to Tante Marie in London, and then I went to Le Cordon Bleu. And the reason I did this is because I wanted to know the science, and I wanted to understand the nitty-gritties of a process, of how you make things. It's very easy if I give you a recipe that you'll be able to do it. But sometimes, like me, I have this insatiable need to go deeper, to know more, and that's how this whole change happened.
Okay. Somebody at the back?
Yes, you just talked about how you started cooking when you had to feed your kids, and you had to go back to your mother to ask her about the recipes. I think a lot of Indian food culture and tradition is very oral, whether it has been in royal kitchens or even in everyone's households. In today's day and age, how do we promote, whether it's in professional kitchens or through books, for younger generations to start picking up cooking so that the tradition and the culture that exists within our society throughout the country are kept alive?
Can I just quickly
I'm going
jump
to
in?
ask.
Can
Yeah,
I
I was
just
just going
quickly
to say,
jump in?
let both of them answer this because she's done 5 books. She's writing from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. I think they're more adept to do this.
I think I have 14 seconds, so I'm just going to say it's just about personal curiosity. I think if you can encourage curiosity in your children, in your younger siblings, that in itself should be a good start, and we're done.
Okay, I'm going to end that by saying, so I have hundreds of people that come to me every year saying I want to be a chef. And a lot of them join, whatever, hotel management, school, college. In the second year, they go out into the industry for 6 months, and they all 90% of them come back saying, I don't want to be a chef. Working in dirty, sweaty, smelly kitchens is not for everybody. But, I mean, if there's a bit of a spark in somebody's head and they might want to be a chef, then there's an incredible career and future in there.